What if the secret to living longer, thinking clearer, and feeling better is just a matter of light and timing? Discover how your body's hidden clock could be the most powerful wellness tool you've never used.
Please hit that subscribe button now and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Don't forget to check the description below for links to our trusted sponsors and ways you can support the show.
Here's something that might surprise you. Chronic jet lag and disrupted sleep schedules can literally shorten your lifespan. And it's not just frequent flyers who are at risk. Our modern lifestyle has most of us living in a constant state of circadian confusion.
That's fascinating and honestly pretty concerning since so many of us are glued to our phones late at night. What exactly happens to our bodies when we throw off these natural rhythms?
Well, it all comes down to this fascinating group of neurons called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Think of it as your body's master clock, sitting right above the roof of your mouth. This tiny cluster of cells orchestrates everything from your sleep patterns to your metabolism.
So you're telling me this small group of neurons has that much control over our entire body?
That's exactly right. And here's where it gets really interesting. Your body temperature actually follows a precise 24-hour cycle, hitting its lowest point about 2 hours before you naturally wake up. We call this your temperature minimum, and it's like having a secret key to reprogramming your internal clock.
I've never heard of this temperature minimum concept before. How can people use this information practically?
Well, think of it this way. If you typically wake up at 6 a.m., your temperature minimum is around 4 a.m. Getting bright light exposure in the 4 hours after that point will shift your body clock earlier, while light exposure before that point does the opposite.
You know what's really interesting about that? It explains why looking at our phones late at night can be so disruptive. We're essentially giving our bodies the wrong light signals at the wrong time.
Exactly. And here's something that might blow your mind. You need about 100,000 lux of light exposure before 9 a.m. to properly set your circadian rhythm. That sounds like a lot, but even on a cloudy day, you can get 7,000 to 10,000 lux just by stepping outside.
So that's why my grandmother always said to get morning sunlight. But what about people who work night shifts or irregular hours?
That's where understanding these mechanisms becomes crucial. The golden rule for shift workers is to maintain consistency, staying on the same schedule for at least 14 days, including weekends. And here's something counterintuitive. Sometimes the common advice about getting sunlight as soon as you land in a new time zone can actually make jet lag worse.
Oh, wow. That goes against everything I thought I knew about dealing with jet lag. Why is that?
It's all about timing relative to your temperature minimum. If you get bright light exposure at the wrong time, you could actually push your internal clock in the opposite direction of what you want. That's why traveling east is typically harder than traveling west.
That makes so much sense. Our bodies are better at staying up late than forcing ourselves to sleep early.
Right, and it's actually an evolutionary adaptation. Our ancestors needed to be able to stay alert when necessary, but being able to force sleep wasn't as crucial for survival. Speaking of adaptation, let's talk about how these principles change across different age groups.
Like how babies aren't born with established sleep-wake cycles?
Exactly. And their melatonin levels are actually much higher per unit of body volume than adults. This is why sleep patterns can be so chaotic for new parents. But there are some fascinating techniques, like non-sleep deep rest protocols, that can help people cope with irregular sleep schedules.
Could you explain more about these non-sleep deep rest protocols? They sound really useful.
Think of them as a way to give your nervous system a reset without actually sleeping. Last night, for example, I woke up at 3 a.m., did one of these protocols, and was able to fall back asleep until 6:30. It's about teaching your brain how to downshift without relying on medication.
That's really powerful, especially for new parents or caregivers who can't always get consistent sleep.
And here's something else to consider. The effects of circadian disruption actually get worse as we age. That's because our melatonin patterns become less stable over time, making us more sensitive to changes in schedule.
So what would you say are the most important takeaways for our listeners?
Well, first, figure out your temperature minimum. It's your key to understanding your internal clock. Second, get that morning light exposure. Aim for those 100,000 lux before 9 a.m. And third, remember that consistency is crucial, whether you're dealing with jet lag, shift work, or just trying to optimize your daily routine.
And it sounds like understanding these mechanisms gives us the flexibility to adapt them to our specific circumstances rather than following rigid protocols.
That's exactly right. Once you understand the underlying science, you can create strategies that work for your unique situation. Whether you're a night shift worker, a frequent traveler, or just someone trying to get better sleep, it all comes down to working with your body's natural rhythms, not against them.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wellness Lab Digest. If this episode helped you, here are 3 quick ways to support the show. 1. Subscribe